Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
I want you to kind of picture something with me for a second. Imagine you're sitting in like the ultimate exclusive underwater dive bar.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm picturing it.
Right. But this isn't, a metaphor for some local pub. We are talking about a pitch black ocean canyon, miles beneath the surface.
Where the water pressure alone would just, completely crush a submarine.
Exactly. And the regulars gathering in this lightless trench are 40-foot long, 80,000-pound sperm whales.
That is quite the clientele.
Yeah, and they haven't come to this specific canyon to, hunt squid or anything. They migrate to these precise underwater acoustic chambers just to bounce their own voices off the deep rock walls.
Wow. So they're just, hanging out?
Basically, yeah. They're socializing, they're broadcasting their identities, and essentially just immersing themselves in the acoustic presence of their community.
It forces a massive shift in how we picture the ocean, because for centuries, humanity has basically been standing outside that dive bar, right?
Yeah, just trying to listen in.
Exactly. Hearing the muffled, sort of distorted noise through the walls and just assuming it was biological machinery at work.
Right, we didn't think there was any real conversation happening.
No, not at all. And we actually used our inability to understand them as a buffer. If you can't understand what an animal is feeling or communicating, it provides a very convenient, plausible deniability.
Oh, for sure. It dictates how humanity interacts with the natural world.
Right. We don't have to feel bad if we just assume they're, biological automatons.
Well, that buffer is officially collapsing. Welcome to today's deep dive. We've got a really incredible stack of sources today.
We really do. It's a heady stack.
Yeah, we're pulling from cutting-edge marine biology research, artificial intelligence breakthroughs from Project CETI, and this deeply provocative philosophical essay published on the Effective Altruism Forum.
It's quite the mix.
It is. And our mission today is to look at how AI has finally mapped the phonetic alphabet of sperm whales. Yeah. But more importantly, we are grappling with the terrifying, beautiful reality of what happens when the technology finally allows the natural world to explicitly speak back to us.
It's a huge moment.
It is. I have this infectious enthusiasm about the idea of talking to animals. I grew up watching Dr. Dolittle,
Oh, of course. We all had that childhood dream.
Right. But this isn't just about fun translations.
No, it's really not. It's about a fundamental rebalancing of our relationship with nature. Like I said, stripping away that plausible deniability we've relied on for centuries.
Yeah. And to understand how massive this AI breakthrough is, we first have to, look back at how humans historically perceived these animals when we couldn't understand them.
Right. If we rewind to the Cold War era, U.S. Navy submarine operators were dropping these early hydrophones into the water.
To listen for Soviet subs, right?
Exactly. But instead, they constantly picked up these rhythmic hammering sounds, and the military literally classified sperm whales as carpenter fish.
Carpenter fish. That is just, it's wild. Because to a sonar operator sitting in a metal tube, those acoustic bursts sounded exactly like someone outside the hull just, hitting the submarine with a hammer.
Yeah, just banging away. They perceived it as mechanical and purely utilitarian, largely because of, the limitations of the human ear and the rudimentary tech of the time.
Right.
But the reality of those sounds didn't really start coming into focus until marine biologist Shane Juro began his work.
Oh, right. The Caribbean study.
Yeah, he spent 2 decades dropping advanced acoustic arrays into the Eastern Caribbean, following this one specific matrilineal clan of sperm whales.
Just following the same families for 20 years.
Exactly, and he isolated those hammering sounds and identified them as codas.
Right, and if we look at the data Jaro collected, these codas aren't just geographical accidents or a random echolocation click.
No, they're highly structured.
Yeah, there is a specific acoustic pattern. They call it a 113 coda.
Right.
It's a distinct, click, 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 click. And the whales in the Caribbean constantly broadcast this exact rhythm to each other.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. So for decades, we thought they were just mindless underwater construction workers making noise, but it's actually closer to, regional accents?
Like spotting someone from New York versus Texas.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is that they broadcast it relentlessly, and that repetition is the key. Jarrow's research strongly suggests this isn't just, an underwater greeting.
Like a simple hello.
Right. It's way more than that. It functions as a profound declaration of cultural identity.
Wow.
Yeah, a sperm whale spends a massive amount of its daily acoustic energy essentially stating, I belong with these animals, I am from this specific family.
Which makes sense, because in the lightless depths of the ocean, where visual cues are completely useless, family is the absolute critical unit for survival.
Precisely. This 113 coda is literally the glue of their social cohesion.
So if this 113 click is a deliberate cultural broadcast, rather than just like instinctual noise, we have to ask how they are physically constructing that message.
Right. It can't just be random striking.
Exactly. There has to be a structural architecture to it, which is the exact puzzle Project CET, the Cetacean Translation Initiative, set out to solve.
And that puzzle was, frankly, mathematically impossible to solve until very recently.
Because the ocean is just too noisy, right?
Exactly. The ocean is incredibly noisy, and human brains simply cannot process the microsecond variations in these clicks.
You just can't hear it.
Right. So Project CA partnered with researchers like UC Berkeley linguist Gashper Begu, and they turned to AI. Specifically, they fed tens of thousands of hours of ocean recordings into generative adversarial networks.
Also known as GANs.
Yes, GANs.
And the adversarial mechanism of a GAN is perfect for this. For those unfamiliar, you basically have two neural networks fighting each other.
A very productive fight.
Yeah. One part of the AI, the generator, tries to synthesize a fake whale coda from scratch, and the other part, the discriminator, looks at the real project CEKI hydrophone data and tries to spot the fake.
Right, and they go back and forth millions of times.
Millions. And that intense trial and error process forces the AI to map the latent acoustic space of the sounds.
Because to successfully trick the discriminator, the generator has to learn the hidden grammar of the clicks.
Exactly. It has to figure out the exact mathematical rules governing how a sperm whale constructs its sounds. And what the AI revealed is that these whales are using a highly complex combinatorial system.
Yeah, the data showed they are manipulating tempo and rhythm, but they are also using something the researchers compared to rubato and ornamentation.
Rubato, like in music.
Exactly. It's less like Morse code, where one click equals one letter, and much more like a jazz musician playing a chord.
Oh, that's such a cool analogy.
The foundational structure is there, but they are stretching the timing of certain clicks or adding extra grace notes to, shift the context of the broadcast.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because the most staggering revelation came out of analyzing the frequencies embedded inside those manipulated clicks.
Oh, yeah. The 2026 breakthrough.
Right. The AI isolated specific acoustic properties that function structurally exactly like human vowels.
Yeah, but wait, I have to push back on that terminology for a second. When we say vowels, are we just using a convenient anthropomorphism? Like, just because it makes the data easier for humans to digest?
Or are they genuinely functioning like vowels in a strict linguistic sense?
It is a strict linguistic and mathematical parallel.
Wow.
Yeah. In human speech, we shape our vocal tract, our tongue, lips, and throat to change the resonant frequencies of the air passing through, which creates formants.
That's what makes an A sound different from an E sound.
Exactly. And the AI proved sperm whales are doing the exact same thing. A sperm whale's head is essentially a massive acoustic organ. I mean, it takes up a third of its body length.
It's huge.
They push air through structures called phonic lips and then actively manipulate the surrounding nasal sacs and spermaceti oil to alter the formants of the click.
So they are physically morphing their internal anatomy on the fly to inject, like, an I vowel or an I vowel or even combined diphthongs directly into the coda.
Precisely. They are structuring their communication with combinatorial rules that mirror the complexity of human languages, like Mandarin or Latin.
But wait, if it's so similar to human language, why did it take us until right now to hear it?
Well, we missed it entirely because of the time domain.
What do you mean?
We process time differently. It's almost like studying an alien species. The structure is there, but the timing of their speech happens at a different pace. Sperm whales process acoustic information at a vastly different speed than primates.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we needed the supercomputing power of a GAN to stretch and analyze that audio data before our human brains could perceive the phonetic alphabet hiding inside the clicks.
And the behavioral data totally backs up this complexity. Because if this is a learned language and not just innate biology, there has to be a learning curve, right?
Absolutely.
And researchers have recorded baby sperm whales bobbling.
Just like human toddlers.
Yes, Before they can execute a perfect 113 coda with all the proper vowels and rubato, they make these unstructured, messy, experimental clicks.
They're practicing.
Exactly. Practicing their muscle memory, figuring out how to speak.
Which forces us to look beyond just the audio files and look at the society that necessitates this language.
Because you need context.
Right. You
Right.
cannot separate a complex vocabulary from the evolutionary pressures that created it. To understand why a species would evolve the ability to transmit complex vowel-encoded jazz chords in the pitch black, you have to look at how they survive.
And Project CAT provided a vivid window into that survival strategy recently. They released the first ever documented footage of a sperm whale birth.
Oh, the footage of Rounder.
Yes, Rounder, a female whale who gave birth to a 1,000-pound calf after a 16-month gestation.
16 months.
Yeah, and that event is just an absolute masterclass in cooperative society.
Because a newborn sperm whale has very little motor control, right?
None. And it can't breathe underwater. So the moment the calf emerged, it swam directly to the mother's head. But Rounder wasn't managing this alone.
Who else was there?
10 other females from her clan, grandmothers, sisters, aunts, they all immediately crowded in.
Just swarmed them.
Yeah, they formed this living, breathing raft, physically supporting this 1,000-pound baby at the surface for 6 hours.
6 hours of just holding it up so it wouldn't drown.
Right, while its tail uncurled and it learned to swim. Even some pilot whales like dolphins were just hanging around in the background watching.
Wow.
And the coordination required to execute that while maintaining a lookout for predators is astounding. Although I have to mention, the observation notes did say there was one young, subadult male present.
Oh, right, Alan.
Yes, Alan. And the researchers noted Alan essentially hovered on the periphery and contributed the absolute least to the physical effort.
Classic Alan.
Typical teenager, right? Just do nothing.
Well, it highlights a fascinating aspect of their biology, actually, because sperm whale society is fiercely matrilineal. The males eventually leave the family unit to roam the oceans alone, while the females stay together for life.
So the females are doing all the heavy lifting.
Exactly. This deep, physically exhausting collaboration is the cornerstone of the female pod's existence.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this level of empathy is deeply evolutionary. If you look at the daily reality of that pod, adult sperm whales have to dive up to a mile deep, holding their breath for nearly an hour, just to hunt the giant squid they need to survive.
And a newborn calf definitely cannot survive the crushing pressure of a mile-deep dive.
No, nor can it hold its breath that long. So they created a societal solution.
The babysitting co-op.
Yes, the grandmothers and aunts run a highly coordinated babysitting co-op at the surface. They take turns literally starving themselves, staying behind in the vulnerable surface waters to protect the calves, while the other mothers hunt in the abyss.
That is just incredible.
Right. I mean, you have to stop and think about how uniquely human we consider empathy and communal care to be, and how humbling it is to realize a society of 40-foot ocean mammals has been doing it for 35 million years.
And when you realize the immense danger and trust involved in leaving your baby at the surface while you plunge a mile into the dark, the complexity of their language makes total sense.
They need it to survive.
Right. They evolved this incredible acoustic alphabet because their survival relies on flawless, empathetic coordination.
Which brings us to the ultimate philosophical crux of today's deep dive. We are no longer talking about biological automatons making construction noise.
No, not at all.
We are looking at a highly intelligent, cooperative society that uses a phonetic alphabet. As AI translation models become more sophisticated, we are inevitably going to start decoding this specific semantic meaning of these broadcasts.
Which is exciting, but also.
It transitions us from a scientific marvel into a terrifying ethical reckoning. What happens when these animals finally speak to us and we don't like what they have to say?
Right, and this is where we examine the framework laid out by Jess Masterson in that essay on the Effective Altruism Forum.
Yeah, that essay is intense.
It really explores what happens to our moral architecture when AI removes the ambiguity of animal communication. To break it down, the author categorizes potential animal communication into 3 epistemic tiers.
Okay, the first tier is acute states.
Yes. This is an animal expressing immediate fear or pain. We already instinctively understand this when a dog yelps, even if we sometimes choose to ignore it.
And the third tier is relational narrative states.
Right, which would be a complex thought like an animal expressing, I miss the ocean, or I miss my brother who was taken away. AI might struggle to verify that if there is no physical context.
But the true societal earthquake lies in the second tier.
Exactly, consistent preferences. This is an animal explicitly and repeatedly communicating a measurable desire. A clear, undeniable statement like, I do not like this enclosure, or I do not want to be touched right now.
Because once an AI translates a consistent preference into plain text on a screen, humanity loses its moral shield.
We can't pretend we don't know anymore.
Exactly. Let's look at the first massive reckoning the essay poses, which deals with conservation and zoos. Imagine an African elephant named Asha.
Okay.
Zoos justify their existence through vital conservation funding. But that funding relies entirely on ticket sales and human access to the animals.
Right. If people don't come, there's no money.
So if a zookeeper is wearing an AI translation earpiece and Asha clearly and consistently broadcasts a complex acoustic signal that translates to, I do not want humans looking at me today, I want my family left alone, what is the protocol?
That's a huge question.
If we acknowledge her as a conscious being with a language, does the zoo respect her explicit lack of consent and shutter the window? And if they do, does the financial model of global zoo conservation just collapse?
It's a massive dilemma. But the economic implications get vastly darker when we look at the second reckoning, agricultural livestock.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The essay introduces the concept of selective silencing. And again, we're just reporting what the essay argues here, but it draws parallels to how historical power structures deliberately withhold the means of expression from populations whose voices would disrupt the status quo.
It forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question about how we will deploy this technology.
Exactly. Pigs, for instance, are exceptionally intelligent. They possess problem-solving skills and complex social structures.
So if we develop an AI sensor that can translate a pig's vocalizations into a direct output reading, I am in distress or I am afraid.
Will the agricultural industry simply refuse to utilize the technology? Will we intentionally legislate bans on AI translation in slaughterhouses just to protect the status quo of animal agriculture?
It's the ultimate test of our intellectual honesty. Like, will we eagerly download translation apps to talk to wild whales but selectively silence the animals we eat just so we don't have to hear the non-human no?
Right. But the essayist argues that while agriculture has the highest material stakes, the most psychologically complex reckoning will actually happen in our own living rooms.
Reckoning 3.
Yes, it centers on companion animals, our pets.
This scenario is fascinating because it removes the elements of physical danger or systemic abuse. The stakes are materially low, but emotionally huge.
Right.
The essay asks us to imagine leaving your beloved terrier, Alfie, at your mom's house while you go on a 2-week vacation. Your mother spoils him entirely. Naturally. But when you return with the carrier to take him back to your apartment, your phone's translation app analyzes Alfie's vocalizations and pings with a direct translation. I want to stay here.
Ouch. That would hurt.
Alfie is safe in both environments. His basic needs are met in both homes. But he has expressed a consistent translated preference for your mother's house.
Do you clip the leash on him and drag him back to your apartment anyway?
So what does this all mean? Are we actually acting as their guardians or just owners prioritizing our own feelings? Because, wait, I have to push back here. What if my cat is meowing at the door and the app translates it as, I want to be an outdoor cat?
Right.
I know for a fact there are speeding cars and coyotes out there. The cat doesn't know that. Doesn't the concept of guardianship demand that we override their consent for their own good?
It does, and the essay addresses that exact friction. In human medicine, particularly in the UK, there is a legal framework called Gillick competence.
What's that?
It's used by doctors to determine whether a minor has the maturity and intelligence to fully understand the risks of a medical decision and therefore grant or refuse consent.
Oh, I see.
Since a cat fundamentally lacks the capacity to comprehend the abstract danger of a coyote or a car, overriding their desire to go outside is an act of true guardianship.
Right, because we possess risk assessment data that they don't.
Exactly. However, the Alfie scenario strips away the risk assessment defense.
Because there are no coyotes at your mom's house.
Right. The risk is equal. So if an animal expresses a clear, explicit preference in a risk-free scenario,
Right.
and you override that direct, non-human no simply because you want the dog in your apartment, you are no longer acting as a guardian.
Wow.
You have to look in the mirror and confront the limits of your love and admit you are acting as an owner, prioritizing your own emotional desire to possess the animal over its stated autonomy.
That completely redefines the concept of a pet.
It really does.
I mean, just to quickly recap the incredible journey of this deep dive, we have gone from dismissing whales as noisy, meaningless carpenter fish to using AI to decode their vowels and their culture.
Uncovering a cooperative society operating in the pitch black.
And all of this phonetic mapping leads us to massive legal and ethical questions about animal rights, where we can no longer plead ignorance.
And this is precisely the frontier that researchers like UC Berkeley's Gaffer Begu are preparing for.
Yeah.
He's already asking, if animals have language, what does that mean for the law?
Right.
The scientific consensus is shifting away from a hard biological line separating human language from animal noise. We are moving from a world of biological mystery into an era of unavoidable legal and moral accountability.
The technology isn't just a theoretical sci-fi concept anymore. The models are actively arriving. And I want to address you, listening to this, directly one last time with a thought inspired by tech ethicist Ezra Raskin. We don't change when we speak. We change when we listen.
That's a powerful quote.
It is. So leave you with this final idea to mull over. Imagine an AI app on your phone could instantly decode the exact communicative signals of a spider resting in the corner of your room.
Oh, wow.
If the app explicitly translated those signals into a plea for its life, would you still quash it? The technology to decode the natural world is arriving. The real question is whether humanity is brave enough to actually hear what it has to say.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.